keeps popping up for me, and I think for the collective as well. So, yeah, why do we need to talk about birth trauma? Well, the number one reason that we need to talk about birth trauma is that the only way to process and heal from birth trauma is by talking about it, by telling our story, by sharing from the heart what it was like, uh, the trauma, the pain, the suffering, and also the complete joy and thrill of the experience, right? We need to open ourselves up to the totality of our birthing experience. And if we're not able to share the real truth, the real nitty gritty truth of our experience that was traumatic, of as a birthing person, then those wounds, that pain, that shame, that guilt is going to fester, and inevitably it's going to show up in our parenting. Now, parenting is hard enough, let me tell you, but when you're also dealing with your own trauma from the birth, it's going to make it just that much harder. And there's no need, right? The second most important reason that we need to talk about birth trauma is something that I don't hear mentioned all that often, which is that healing is possible. We are actually able to um, alchemize, to transform that difficult and challenging birthing experience into a source of strength, wisdom, and power for ourselves as parents and as people. So, so processing our birthing experience, our birth trauma, and alchemizing it is a fantastic way to gain our superpowers, to actually recognize, wow, I can do hard things, right? And um, the way it shows up again is in our parenting, in how patient we're able to be with our children, in how present we're able to be with our children, in how deeply we can bond and how well we can love our children, which I know all parents, most parents, I would say all parents, they want to love their children, but love is an action verb. Love is not just some fluffy idea or feeling. When you're in the trenches of parenting, when your kid is yelling in your face, you're dumb, or whatever other insult they learned recently, you really need those superpowers. You need those extra stores of energy, wisdom, and strength and patience to um, just to remind yourself, like, this is a moment in time. We're going to get through this. And if you have not healed the birth trauma, it is extremely triggering and challenging. You know, what tends to come up is a story of like, how dare you say that to me? I hurt so deeply. I hurt every day from being pregnant and birthing you. And how dare you talk to me this way? And it can create anger and rage and so much resentment. Why? Because we have not talked about our birth trauma. We have not dealt with our birth trauma. Now, the caveat here, of course, is that when I say talk about birth trauma, I don't just mean like talk about it with a friend or a sister, unless they're really excellent at listening. I mean, talk to someone who can actually hold space for you to have those feelings to come up and to honor those feelings, those difficult, challenging, super intense feelings. It's not an easy thing. I'm not saying it's an easy thing. That's what I'm saying. A friend or a sister might not be ready for that, especially if they haven't processed their own birth trauma. So you could get into the situation where you're like, oh, I went through something really difficult. And the person, instead of listening to you and taking in what you're saying, will say, oh, me too. Let me tell you my story, right? Which is totally human and normal. But we're talking about next level healing here. And we're talking about healing that's not just possible. I can't stress this enough. It is necessary. So, of course, the third reason that I want to float up here, an answer to the question, why do we need to talk about birth trauma, is for our children. So, in order to honor and truly love and be there for our children, it definitely behooves us to do some very, very serious and deep healing work. And if you think that this is going to take forever, it doesn't have to. There are some incredible tools out there which, when honed and used properly, can have you transform the trauma of that birth in weeks, months, very, very quickly, possibly even days, depending on the magnitude of your trauma. So healing is possible, and we're responsible for our own healing. So it's not enough to say that those people over there need to heal and need to work on themselves. We've got to do that work, that internal work to transform that pain and that suffering, to release it, to really, really, really accept it and heal from it so that we can move on, better, stronger, deeper people for having done that. And the last thing I want to mention is that birth trauma does not just affect the birthing person. Birth trauma can definitely affect partners, other children, grandparents, all the people who are involved in the birth or the pregnancy. So when we say birth trauma, we're not just talking about the person who gave birth, right? We're talking about the whole family, right? Anyone can suffer from birth trauma if they are close to the birthing person, if they are in the room during a traumatic birth, if they are supporting someone through a difficult pregnancy or a pregnancy loss, they're going to be affected. Again, possibly not as deeply as the one who actually went through it, but they deserve healing as well. So the tools that I'm talking about, and I can share more about the specific tools on a different live. So the tools that I'm talking about, they will work for everyone. And the beauty is that all it takes is that choice, that decision to go for it, to go for healing, to go for excavation, to go for releasing that trauma. It's so powerful. And this work is absolutely transformational. And I'm just honored to be a part of it, to guide my clients and to guide myself as I'm healing as well. I'm on my own healing journey. But it's truly an honor to witness my clients transforming their parenting and just really stepping into their next level. Be blessed.